Image consultant and now popular dating guru Kevin Samuels is fast on his way to 1 million subscribers, thanks to his infamous "You're average at best" video.
Ma'am, you're average looking at best.
Now, millions of people are aware of his brash, straight to the point way of thinking and the advice that he gives to men and women who want to be high value or attract a high value man. Today, I'm going to critique that thinking.
Stop. No, you will not overtalk me. You will not overtalk me.
Unfit. We
Black women are your own counsel. You sit around and talk to each other, assuming that you can fix one another when you're all broken.
Now, before we get into the video, 2 quick things. Firstly, hi, I'm Adella. I like to encourage my viewers to think openly and critically. And second of all, disclaimer to Kevin Samuels supporters, I have tried my hardest to make this video without pride or preconception, so please listen to it without pride and preconception. I've taken a different approach to this in that I try to understand myself why I think Kevin thinks the way he does. I'll also be admitting where I think he's right, because I do think he speaks some facts. Not all facts, but some facts. So I'm sure you know who Kevin Samuels is, but for those of you who don't know, he is a 52-year-old image consultant who looks to help anybody who wants to improve their image, but he's recently become popular as a dating and relationship coach. So before we take a step into the dating guru side of Kevin Samuels, here's a bit about his background. So he graduated with a chemical engineering degree. He has a background in sales. This actually plays a big part in who he is. He has been married twice, divorced twice, and has a child.
I hope when you have children, you don't have to experience that level of hurt as a parent with an ungrateful child.
We'll get back to that. He owned his own marketing and advertising agency. He's a Christian, having served in about 3 singles ministries.
I was over singles ministry at 3 different churches.
Remember that point for later. He got his start on YouTube about 5 years ago reviewing men's fragrances. And he's got some style, I can't lie.
Who this?
So after fragrances and stuff, he switched to telling men how to level up, placing importance on things like work ethic in terms of how to generate wealth and be a higher value man. So we know he's very straight talking, but it's worth noting that he gives it to men as much as he gives it to women.
How tall are you?
I'm only 5'5". Just turned.
What kind of shape are you in?
I'm overweight, working on it right now.
Okay. You got 2 struggles already. You can't be short and fat.
But I will touch on that later. So then more women started tuning in, and he actually found that women were his more engaged audience. So he switched to talking more about women's issues and giving them advice, which is a great marketing tactic because he is a marketeer. After a few years, the viral video, "You're average at best," went viral.
I mean, my body is not average, so.
But ma'am, you please don't make me say it.
I actually did a video on this. Admittedly, I had not watched any other Kevin Samuels content. I hadn't done my research when I did that video. I have now. So Kevin has recently popularized, not invented, but popularized the term high value man. He talks about it a lot. He defines a high value man in many ways. He also says that being a high value man has absolutely nothing to do with women.
High value man has nothing to do with women.
He also defines what a high value woman is, and he very clearly says, first and foremost, a high value woman is proven by her usefulness to men.
A high value woman, more than anything else, it is linked to her usefulness to men.
But we will talk about that a bit later, so stay tuned. So why is Kevin so popular? Well, I will be the first to admit that as a woman myself, I do feel like we can be a little bit sensitive to the truth, and the truth can hurt us. It can hurt me. And so I feel like sometimes as women, we do pander to each other in an effort to uplift and encourage, because we have maybe been oppressed by men in the past. And as a result, we do encourage and we do uplift one another, but we may have bred a agenda of delusional expectations. a little bit, but that's a whole nother topic. Don't kill me. So I feel like what Kevin has done and why his predominantly male supporters are so supportive is because they're screaming, yes, speak the truth. So I get it.
We hear what women want. Great. Well, I have one question to the women. What do the kind of men you want from a woman? And that's when you get cricket ass quiet.
You can't ask that man.
So I spoke about this in my binary thinking video. You should check that out afterwards. But I feel like what he's doing is he is speaking to the silent majority, or it might not be the majority, but he's speaking to a silent group of people, predominantly men, who maybe feel that they cannot express their truth in terms of their true views because they will be cancelled. So Kevin Samuels is speaking up for those people. So totally makes sense. So I think Kevin's breakdowns sometimes can be a little bit necessary, especially in cases, for example, where a woman, a person may not have actually done the maths to determine whether the expectations that they are expecting are in fact realistic. So for example, I could be a woman saying, oh, I want a man to look after me and 3 kids. And then you're like, okay, how much does that man have to make? And then you do the maths and you're like, are you even around these kind of people that make that kind of money? You know, simple maths like that. So I feel like sometimes these breakdowns do make a lot of sense and are sometimes necessary. So I feel like it's one of those things where the sooner we get a reality check, the sooner we can come to terms with those things and the sooner we can get the life that we actually want and that's actually achievable. Not to say, oh, let's settle, but actually realizing what's important and realizing that like social media and celeb culture has bamboozled us into thinking that one thing is important when it's actually not important or even achievable for us. However, and you know what? This is not even a criticism of Kevin himself. This is a criticism of his supporters. I feel like he has bred something in them that I can only describe as an ugly confidence. Just look at the comment section of his videos. I feel like because he's articulate and he has the guts or the confidence to say what he thinks, inarticulate men who in real life would never put a woman in her place, they live vicariously through him. So I don't rate that. I'm a firm believer of keeping the same energy to the point where I'm not even a confrontational person. So most of the times, right, I won't even say what I want to say because I know I wouldn't say it to their face. So for example, what I'm saying on this video, if I wasn't willing to, you know, say it to Kevin if he was sat right next to me, I just wouldn't say it. And I just feel like people should keep the same energy in the comment section, in real life, on the internet. Now, here is my theory about Kevin Samuels. Kevin Samuels in his past, or maybe even in his present, has been a somewhat irresponsible husband, maybe even an irresponsible father. And I feel like he has had negative or frustrating interactions with women and maybe even his child. As a result, he has abandoned or failed in his responsibilities. Well, the main area in his life that he has been successful in is his finances. And as it so happens, we live in a world that prioritizes men's finances and women's beauty. I did a video on beauty standards if you want to check it out. Kevin has latched onto this one measure of success and he has allowed it to shape the rest of his teachings. The result of this has been half-truths that call out everything women do wrong in a pursuit of a relationship or in a relationship itself. But when it comes to relationships, he completely abdicates men of all and any and every responsibility aside from financial provision. No responsibility to have a good character for the sake of the relationship. No responsibility in the conception or the responsibility of children in a relationship. And absolutely no responsibility in the success of the relationship, like I said, outside of financial provision. And if financial success is what you want and what you look for in a relationship, then by all means, listen to Kevin. But I think Joseph Prince said it best when he said that sometimes we look at success in individual areas as opposed to looking at success holistically. And I feel like you have to look at all areas of your life. So yes, it would be great to have a healthy bank account, a healthy body. But what about having a healthy character, having a healthy family structure, having healthy relationships? I just think we should look at this holistically. Also, I feel like it's worth saying, I said it in my cancel culture video, but I don't think we should cancel people for things that they did in the past. I've seen loads of videos of people talking about Kevin Samuels' past in terms of how much he made in his 30s, his past eviction, his run-ins with the law, his relationship or mocking his relationship with his exes and his children. I don't think we should dig into those things, so I won't be touching on all of them. I think what's more important is that we address what somebody is doing right now and the character that they have right now, because I think it's actually good that he's been able to get himself out of certain situations. I think we should all strive to improve and we shouldn't be held back by our past. Now, what we can do though is evaluate how we think his past may be shaping his current views and his current way of thinking. And that is exactly what I'm going to evaluate in the rest of this video. So Kevin speaks a truth that is true for people living a certain lifestyle, certain kind of mindset, certain kind of viewpoint. So if you are one of the men and women that he's describing, then yeah, Kevin is absolutely speaking the truth. He himself says that the world defines your value. So straight away, I know that me and him are not on the same page, but that's okay.
Who decides who's high value? The market, the world.
But like I said, I put aside my pride and my ego and I listened to his words objectively as I could, with a lens of like realism. And actually, yeah, a lot of what he said is true in the context of like the materialistic, capitalist, Western sort of world that we live in. And if you subscribe to that and if you want to be a part of that, then yeah, some of what he's saying you might need to listen to. If as a woman you agree with Kevin's definition of a high value man, I personally don't, but if you do, then you might also kind of have to listen to his advice, because it seems like a lot of high value men, not all of them, but a lot of them are in his comments saying, yes, what he's saying is true. And so if you are a woman that wants to attract that type of high value man, maybe you have to listen to what Kevin is telling us to do. But here's the problem. Remember I said that Kevin has previously served in church ministries.
I was over singles ministry at 3 different churches.
Kevin Samuels says that he's a Christian.
We're Christians. We chose to be that.
Kevin talks about the church and Christianity, and he uses it a lot, actually, to make some of his points.
I grew up in the church. I am very well, I was baptized at 5, very well versed in what I'm about to go into.
So I'm led to believe that he is a believer, or he identifies as a believer. But then he says things like this.
I'm openly promoted. I've taken an escort to a company function.
And this.
If you have to have a man that's loyal to you, get an average man. Or actually get a below average man.
And this.
Do high value men deserve the option to cheat? As a man who is a high value man, are you helping yourself if you don't exercise the option? Are you helping yourself if you give your woman, your wife, the peace of mind and saying, yeah, I got high value options, baby, but I will never do it? I'm going to tell you right now, that will be foolish. You need to give your woman, your wife, the gift of being uncomfortable.
So what Kevin's doing here was so well defined by Ruslan as ego duality, separated logic, where Kevin's using 2 different applications of Christianity in different areas of his life. When it serves his narrative of teaching women, he very much pulls up the Bible and what it says about submission, etc., etc.
What needs to happen for you as a woman to happily submit to the authority of a man?
But not so much for men. According to Kevin's logic, boys will be boys with no biblically sound accountability for their actions. Now, I do kind of get this logic that unfortunately women tend to be the ones that have to bend to the desires of the man or risk not being picked. And I get that this is because men in our society right now tend to be the choosers. And let's be real, the standard for men in terms of, these things like morally sound, promiscuity, all those kind of things, the rules tend to be different for men and women. And so it seems that flawed men will likely still be successful in love, whereas flawed women are not afforded the same grace. And so if men don't have to change and the dating world kind of is set up in their favor, why would they change? So the logic is there. But Kevin, please keep the same energy. If you are a man of faith, then everything you preach and teach has to come under that lens. And that is why I say that Kevin Samuels speaks a truth, not the truth. The best and worst example of this is Kevin's explanation for why a high value man can cheat, or in other words, exercise his options. And as a woman, it's my job to ensure that that high value man does not exercise those options. Again, completely abdicating all responsibility of the man.
Ladies, what it ultimately comes right down to is, are you matching your man's hustle? Are you matching your high value man's grind? Are you matching his energy? And if so, you would understand that he has options, he deserves options, and it's your job to make sure that he does not exercise those options.
So by that logic, Kevin, can a high-value woman who is wanted by many, many men also exercise her options? Yeah? All right, cool. But women, don't do that. Now, it's worth noting that his faith is not the only area that he contradicts himself in. And it's worth noting that his faith does seem to play a big role in his morality, in his work ethic, in the advice that he gives. So what we're going to talk about is other ways in which his ego duality plays out in his views. So in my research, I actually found myself agreeing with Kevin on so many fronts, but then I also found so many times when he contradicted himself in an effort to continue to sort of push his narrative of total female responsibility and no male responsibility. Okay, one of his biggest contradictions that I kind of mentioned before is his definition of a high value man versus his definition of a high value woman. And I'm not talking about like for like, because I think we've already established that men and women are not judged by the same criteria. But he claims, and many women seem to claim, that they want a high value man. Yet Kevin Samuels says that being a high value man has absolutely nothing to do with women. On the other side, he says that a high value woman, first and foremost, is proven by her ability to get and keep a man. And then goes on to list a whole bunch of attributes that men look for that are synonymous with a woman being a high value woman. Now, I hope I don't lose you here, but if Kevin believes that all women or many women want a high value man, then wouldn't a man's ability to get and keep a woman be proof or on the list of proofs that he is in fact high value? The same way he so strongly pushes that proof that a woman is high value is her ability to get and keep a high value man or a man. So that is one of the biggest contradictions I found that I tried to rationalize it. I couldn't get my head around it, but it's not the only one. He says some other things. He also said that Christian women must be married.
So I cannot sit there and say I agree that you're saying that a woman should not feel bad that she's not married or whatever. At some point, you need to have a husband if you're a Christian. So what you ultimately said is you didn't want women to feel something wrong. There is something wrong if you're a Christian and don't have a husband. At some point.
Now, what he said here is just completely wrong, because there are countless men and women in the Bible who are Christians and who are not married, like Jesus Christ and the Apostle Paul, who famously said this. I'm going to read it out. In 1 Corinthians 7 verses 8 to 9, it says this: "To the unmarried," which is both men and women, "and the widows, I say that it is good for them to remain single, as I am. But if they cannot exercise self-control, they should marry. For it is better to marry than to burn with passion." So Paul goes on to speak about the joys of marriage, but he makes it very clear that marriage is a choice. And as long as your choice is honoring to God, then it is okay. So just to be clear, it is okay for Christian women not to be married. They have not failed if they have not married. And then another example of, I don't know if it's a contradiction or just incorrect, but he talks about discernment. Here's the clip.
Discernment. It can be trusted. She trusts her own judgment. So when her man says, we got to go over here and take this risk, her answer is yes.
So yeah, he has the right definition, but he has the wrong application, because here he has again, made it fit his narrative and talked about discernment as if it's a woman saying yes to something that her husband says, when actually the definition of discernment is discerning, so deciding, using wisdom to decide whether something is right or wrong. It's not the same as compliance. So not only does he use words incorrectly to fit his narrative, he also does this thing where he moves the goalpost and it's so frustrating to watch, which he gets away with due to his sales background. He has a narrative and he tries to stick to that narrative. And when the narrative is not going in his favor or in his direction that he's planned, he moves the goalpost. Here's an example.
An 8. You give yourself an 8. Who else would you rank in the 8 category as far as like famous people? Beyonce is an 8.
No, Beyonce's not an 8.
Who's the image consultant in real life?
Oh, okay. So you think Beyonce's an 8?
Beyonce is an 8. Kelly Rowland would be a 9. And Rihanna, even with her big forehead, would be a 10. So by giving yourself an 8, you put yourself in the category where Beyonce is.
I'm not an 8.
Are you in the category with Beyonce?
No, I'm not Beyonce.
I mean, we're talking about just from the face.
Oh, okay.
Okay, then what would you give yourself if you understand Beyonce as an 8?
Okay, maybe I'm like a 6.
Which is closer to reality.
You asked her to rate herself, and when she gave you an answer that wouldn't allow you to continue with the planned narrative, you manipulated her into giving an answer that would, before you then proceeded on with the conversation. Now, I mentioned in my theory that I think Kevin Samuels has been hurt by women, and unfortunately I think this has fueled his misogyny. I don't use that term loosely. I don't call a lot of people misogynistic, but yes, I do believe that Kevin is slightly misogynistic. People on this platform, on this YouTube, have gone as far as to exposing his divorce records or his records about his issues with child support. I'm not interested in delving into that kind of stuff, but what I will say is I do think his experiences have shaped his current view of women. And often his choice of wording leads me to believe that he views women as objects. He refers to us as assets.
She is a feminine asset in her simplest form.
He talks about being able to keep women.
A man must want to keep you.
He talks about us as useful assets.
To be an asset, you must be useful. Useful to who? Useful to a man.
He explains how we should be enthusiastic, like a child or a puppy.
She's like a kid or a puppy in her approach to the market. What does that mean? Puppies are always happy to see you. Kids act like, wow, whoa, that's cool, bottled.
And then the dog reference appears again.
Again, you can learn a lot from Doc Man's best friend. Dogs. Why do men love dogs? Because they're loyal.
Mixed in with his misogyny is a bit of pride, which we all have, but Kevin's pride does not let women disagree with him. We've all seen Kevin kick women off of his live for interrupting him or, in his eyes, disrespecting him.
See, this always comes down. Listen, no. We know where this goes, man.
But then he goes on to do the exact same thing.
I try to be like, I'll go. I'll just get a
All right,
salad
hold
and
on. How many?
Sorry.
And I think it's quite easy actually to discern when somebody's not speaking to you from a place of love. And I think a lot of the women he speaks to, yes, they do get triggered, but it's because they know immediately that he's not speaking to them from a place of love. Even when he is quote unquote teaching them something that might be beneficial, you can tell, they can tell that it doesn't come from a place of love and it's laced with wanting to be right and being disrespectful. And whilst I think obviously, you know, it's important to speak the truth and tell people how it is, I do think as Christians, and if Kevin is a Christian, everything you say has to come from a place of love. We are supposed to love everybody, and it's very apparent when something is not coming from a place of genuine love. Now, I'm not going to say that Kevin Samuels hates black women in particular, because I know that's the narrative that a lot of people say. I don't necessarily think that's true, but as a black woman myself, the clip I'm about to play is quite disappointing because it's essentially 3 black men talking about how black women are universally unattractive. Now, call me biased or say I'm ignoring statistics, blah, blah, blah. But I think what you can't do is say or claim that you want to help black women and then simultaneously put us down in this manner. Here's the clip.
For people, you can map their facial structure, and it goes to a mathematical calculation.
Oh yeah.
Beauty is universal. And the thing is, we're talking about black women. They are on the opposite end of the spectrum on all ranks.
Now, what I want to do real quick is I want to encourage the women that are watching this video. Whether or not you believe that there isn't a beauty standard, I think what's most important is that you focus on being comfortable in your own body, in your own face, in your own booty. Your weight, whether you're over or under, your bloated belly, your unsymmetrical face, your hair texture, these are not defining factors in who you are. By all means, take reasonable steps to make improvements or changes that you think will help you feel better about yourself or succeed in any area of life. But these things should not be driven from a place of self-hate. Just take steps to love yourself and move into the person that you want to be. You can do both while loving yourself. And for those that might say, oh, women never had a problem when he was just speaking to men, I would argue that if he was as popular then as he is now and he was talking to men, I personally would still have a problem with it because he's not coaching men on how to be holistically better men. He's not coaching them on their character. And don't confuse financial success with overall success with regards to your character. So yeah, he is teaching men how to become high value. And the problem is some of these men will become high value, but because they haven't been taught anything other than, you know, the financial side of becoming a high value man, they might go on to get married, they might go on to have kids, and they will just continue to perpetuate this unhealthy, ego-dualistic way of thinking in their relationship. I think the biggest problem that women have sometimes with Kevin Samuels, and it's been so hard to like verbalize or put into words, because he is so articulate that a lot of the points he makes make sense, right? A high value man might be in the top whatever percentage of men, and therefore they have more options. And if you're a woman who wants a certain type of man, you have to ask yourself, what does that certain type of man want in a woman? All of these things make sense, right? The problem I've concluded, right, is that when it comes to relationships, Kevin Samuels places all, apart from financial, all the responsibility on the woman for the success of the relationship, in the form of sacrifice and bending and conforming, to the point of accepting unacceptable behavior like cheating.
Him stepping out from time to time, just part of the deal.
He expects women to change to get a man, but not for men to change to get a woman.
You're going to have to compete for him. You're going to have to stay hot, beautiful, feminine, fit, friendly, cooperative, submissive. All those things you're going to have to invest, sacrifice, and do all these things just to hope to land his last name. And you're going to have to accept the fact that even after you get it, you're going to still have to put up with other women and him.
They need not take any accountability.
And the women who have these lifestyles, they're around other women who have these lifestyles, and they don't talk about it. Or if they do talk about it, they say boys will be boys, men are men. And if you can't handle it, ladies, leave.
He expects us to accept what he wouldn't.
They're loyal. Because when a woman is loyal, it liberates a man to be free to go take chances and risks. Because home, he doesn't have time to wonder, am I come back home, is she going to be here?
Men or high value men are allowed to demand exactly what they want in the relationship with little compromise in relation to how they are in that relationship. But women must bend completely to the desires of the man. And having to sacrifice to make money to become a high value man doesn't count in my eyes, because that will benefit you irrespective of having a woman in your life or not. But everything that a woman in Kevin's eyes is expected to change, do, conform about herself is for the purpose of getting a man. And what's the prize? Material comfort with a rich man who places little value on your comfort in the relationship outside of money. And interestingly, one thing that nobody seems to be asking is Kevin even qualified to be giving the advice that he's given? Has he ever had a successful relationship?
Why are you not married? I've been married twice. Why? Is that not enough for you? Why am I not married? Because I don't have to be yet. I've got a dating rotation.
He talks about kids being a liability to men in a relationship.
Have you raised your child to be an asset to another man? Men, their liabilities.
Does he look after his kids?
Didn't help out with supporting his daughter. Let's talk about it.
And I'm not saying that only married people can give advice on relationships, but if, for example, I wanted to get fit and I wanted to hire a PT, I'm going to hire a PT that's not only fit, but has a track record of helping people go from unhealthy to healthy. Kevin has had 2 failed marriages, and honestly, no shade to him whatsoever, because marriage is hard. But I'm not going to take advice on how to get a man for marriage from a man who's unfortunately failed at it twice and says the things that he says. He even says this himself about taking advice from non-married women.
Why do unmarried women like Lonnie Love and Garcelle Bouvet think that they have something to tell you women? Not unmarried. I need you to take a look at their ring finger, and it's as dry as French toast.
But then he goes on to say that his 2 failed marriages don't disqualify him.
Okay, so what you're telling me is if I've been married 30 years to one woman, you listen to me then?
Yeah. I'm gonna want somebody that's been married for 30 years and has a fantastic marriage and can get me from point A to point B, because that's where I ultimately want to be.
In conclusion, Kevin Samuels makes a lot of sense, especially in the realm of like working hard and being realistic in this world and being successful. And I actually think it's important that somebody is speaking up for the silent majority and saying what other people feel like they cannot say out of fear of being cancelled and stuff. And I do think it is very important that we as women let go of past hurts and allow ourselves to be teachable, not disrespected, but teachable, and open to hearing what men are trying to tell us if these are the type of men that you want. I said it before, I think it comes as a form of rebellion against the oppression that we have faced at the hands of men. But I think that sometimes it can go to the opposite extreme, and in a bid to encourage each other, we shout things like, he needs to love you at your worst, accept me as I am, flaws and all, take me as I come, never ever change for a man, etc. And I think what Kevin Samuel and co are saying is, that's not what they want. And that narrative is not working in our favor. And we are doing ourselves a disservice in lying to ourselves. However, while, like I said, Kevin Samuel speaks some truth, I believe they are laced with contradictions that serve to fuel his narrative, which I honestly believe is laced with misogyny. And for that reason, I would say take some of his advice with a very small pinch of salt. Instead, seek real advice from real people who love you and who are wise, please. If you really want to know what men think, I would advise you to find a man, a wise man in your life, and ask them to be real with you without fear of repercussion. And I think you'll be surprised with the information that they give you. It might not be what you want to hear, but at least it will be from a place of love. And finally, be the person that you want to attract, and do not allow behaviors that you know to be wrong into your relationship just because Kevin Samuel says that the man you want has options. I'm going to list some videos that I've done down in the description below that speak to some of the topics I've touched on in this video. And you can also check out the ones that are going to appear on the screen now. I did one about beauty standards. I did another one where a man came and answered questions that women had asked. And I also did one on types of men to avoid. So do check those out. And as always, guys, let me know what you think of this topic down below in the comments. I'm ready for them. And I will see you in my next video. Bye, guys.